Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. All right. This is a joint subcommittee meeting of the subcommittees on cannabis control and zoning. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Council Drinkwater.
Here.
Council Leahy.
Here.
Council Yem. Council Robinson.
Here.
Vice President.
All right, thank you. And I believe Councilor Yem is on his way and will be joining us shortly. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss a draft zoning ordinance that the City Council and this subcommittee has been presented with and has discussed previously. This is a continuation of that discussion on whether to adopt a zoning ordinance that would allow cannabis delivery operators to locate businesses within the city of Lowell. So I know we are joined here tonight by Assistant City Manager and Director of Planning and Development, Giovanni Baez-Rose, as well as Francesca Sigliano from the Department of Planning and Development. I believe we have a brief presentation that Francesca will give. So at this time, I'm sorry, thank you to my committee member. We're also joined by Councilor Eric Gittier here in the chamber. So with that, I will turn it over to Francesca for a presentation on the topic.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm actually just waiting to gain access over the screen. Okay, great. Okay, thank you all. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview on the proposed modifications to existing zoning regulations that would create a permitting pathway for marijuana delivery operators and couriers in the city. So important to note first off is that currently licensing is only open to economic empowerment and social equity applicants for a period of 36 months from the date the first licensee receives a notice to commence operations from the CCC. So we're in a window right now where only economic empowerment and social equity applicants can really pursue these licenses. I also wanted to make the distinction between two different but related types of uses that I'll be talking about. So the first is a delivery operator establishment, which is defined as a store, an establishment that stores cannabis products and delivery vehicles on site, but do not allow customers to purchase on site. So a delivery operator establishment would store the product and deliver the product, but no customers would be entering and exiting the establishment. And then a cannabis courier establishment stores delivery vehicles but does not store cannabis products on site. So it would be essentially an office or a storage space for vehicles, but it would not store a cannabis product on site. What do the proposed changes include? We propose permitting delivery and courier establishments as a principal and accessory use by right in the light industrial and general industrial zoning districts. These are, I believe, almost all of Tanner Street qualifies as either light industrial or general industrial, just to give you an idea of the types of areas that it would be allowed by right. And by special permit in the regional retail, high-rise commercial, and office park zoning districts. So an example of regional retail would be on Rogers Street, where Pure Industries, I forget what it's called, Smith Cannabis currently operates. That's regional retail. High-rise commercial is the area, or includes the Cross Point area. And then we only have a couple small office park zoning districts, but it's a traditional suburban office park. This is very similar to how we regulate marijuana cultivation facilities. So the use allowances would be exactly the same as cultivation. And then we also propose to establish a fairly permissive, so relaxed parking requirement of one off-street parking space per 1,200 square feet of the building's gross floor area for both delivery and courier uses. So this is a pretty relaxed parking requirement, since this type of a business would not have customers coming to and from the business, and presumably would not have a ton of employees. So this slide just includes the proposed changes to the language. So the first being just adding the word delivery into a registered marijuana use definition, and then adding a marijuana delivery operator definition, which is an entity licensed to purchase at wholesale and warehouse finished marijuana products acquired from a marijuana cultivation facility and sell and deliver finished marijuana products and marijuana accessories directly to consumers. A delivery operator is not authorized to repackage marijuana or marijuana, oh, that's a typo, or open a storefront under this license. The delivery operator must be licensed by the Cannabis Control Commission and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And then the definition of a marijuana courier is an entity licensed to deliver finished marijuana products, marijuana accessories, and branded goods directly to consumers from a marijuana retailer, but is not authorized to sell marijuana or marijuana products directly to consumers, and is not authorized to wholesale, warehouse, process, or repackage. A marijuana courier shall not be considered to be a marijuana retailer. And then the final change in the definition section is to just remove the language "and marijuana delivery retailer" from the definition of a recreational commercial marijuana dispensary definition, because this is a distinct use from a dispensary, so we want to make it clear and avoid any confusion. These tables show the proposed table of uses for these two new uses. They would be regulated identically in this table, and similar to one of the previous slides, it just indicates that a special permit from the planning board would be required in the regional retail, high-rise commercial, and office park zoning districts, and it would be allowed by right in the light industrial and general industrial zoning districts. For both, the first table is the principal use, and then the second table where it says accessory uses, this would be if, for example, there was an existing cultivation facility that wanted to add this as an accessory use, so a secondary use on the property. And then finally, this is the language showing the proposed parking requirements. Other considerations that are not necessarily related to zoning, but the council may decide to discuss this as well, is whether the host community agreements for delivery and courier businesses, whether the council would like to have a cap on the number of host community agreements that they would like the city to issue. We have a cap of 5 for retail currently, but there is no cap for cultivation at this time. So we have been continuously permitting cultivation facilities through the present day, but retail we have maxed out at 5. All 5 have received their permits from the land use boards, and we are not accepting applications for host community agreements from retail. So it's just something for the council to consider. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open it up if there are any questions from members of the subcommittee or other city councilors. Councilor Gettier.
Have we run all of these changes through the solicitor's office?
Not yet.
Okay. If these changes were to be put in place, would the city see any additional funding, revenue?
Yes, because with every host community agreement, we get community impact fees. So if we were to accept delivery applications and businesses were to apply for a host community agreement, we would be getting yearly payments from them.
So we've had no discussion with the solicitor's office. How did we come out with this outline? Is some other community currently doing this, that we had this outline, or is this something that we just?
So the state has legalized delivery, and we're lagging in terms of adopting local regulations. Other communities have adopted local regulations to meet the state has open licensing for this type of use, so we're playing catch up, essentially.
Have you looked at other communities and what they have put
Yes.
forth, and that's how you drafted this, based off of what other communities have put forth?
Yes, and also just complementing what we already have for a marijuana ordinance, because we have a marijuana ordinance for all the other different types of legal marijuana uses, so this is building on that, but it did take into account what other communities are doing.
Okay, so this didn't come from scratch from us, just
No.
off of a state thing. It was something we looked at other communities and we got
Yes.
language from other communities and put forth. Will we be going to neighborhoods before we separate the zoning in those neighborhoods? Will we go for neighborhood approval, or even go to the neighborhoods and say, this is what we're thinking about in your neighborhood and district? Because I know Stedman Street, when they started talking about that stuff, our neighborhood was not really in favor of that change. So would we seek neighborhoods to see what their opinions are before we went forth with something like this?
So I know that when, at least for other types of marijuana uses, when an applicant seeks a license with the state, they are required to do community meetings with the neighborhood. And so I'm not sure that it would apply for delivery. I'm assuming that it would. The state's requirement would be the same for delivery, but I can definitely look into that. This would not affect the areas that we currently allow marijuana. It would just, marijuana-related uses, it would just add a different type of, in the existing areas. So this wouldn't be expanding into new areas that don't currently already allow marijuana uses.
And I guess my only other thing would be is if we could go back and see what those other communities did to get this language going forth, and how their bodies, their governing bodies actually dealt with it, and what are the parameters. If that information would be important, at least to me, and I don't know about the rest of the councilors, because I just think as we start into new ventures, we should have a solid base and go to the solicitor and see what, where we are before we put the cart before the horse, kind of. But I thank you for looking at other communities and how they put it together, and we're not just starting from scratch and trying to be the pioneer to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And one thing I just want to point out, should there be a recommendation from this subcommittee to move forward, obviously, this would then go to the full city council for discussion and a potential vote. And the other thing, I do know that in addition to whatever language what we would approve to essentially allow this type of operation in the city of Lowell, there are some very stringent regulations that exist at the state level in order to become licensed. It's an extremely heavily regulated industry, and I know in particular the delivery regulations at the state level took a long time to actually be approved, and there's a lot of measures in there to guard against, I'm sure, all the potential concerns that there may be. So I just want to address that there's a very complicated or thorough regulatory scheme at the state level for these types of businesses. And I did also just want to, this has been discussed at this subcommittee before, but I think just for the edification of the public and anybody who may be watching for the first time, I was wondering if, Francesca, if you could just maybe speak to, I know this, we're talking about allowing delivery operators to locate within the city, but delivery itself, I know that this is something, because we are a community that allows retail, that, for example, if there was a delivery business located in a surrounding town, irrespective of anything we do or do not do, it's my understanding that the business located from a surrounding community could deliver products into Lowell. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just think that's important to note, that we're not, discussing here tonight whether we allow delivery to occur. We're discussing whether to allow operators to locate within the city of Lowell. I just wanted to make that particular point clear. I'll open it up once again for any other committee members or councilors to ask a question or make a comment. Councilor Yem?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you already touched upon. My question would be, are we controlling the delivery? That's kind of hard because there's a lot of cultivation outside of Lowell, and then also people can almost like Uber Eat. You order and they deliver it to your home. So we're not right now talking about controlling the delivery to our city, from other cultivation and distribution, right? So we're just talking about the zoning to allow cultivations, right, basically. And again, I'm sorry, I was a little bit late. The clock's not working, but that's my just the concern. We would have difficulty controlling or policing the delivery portion of it.
Yeah, essentially that is sort of something that had been regulated at the state level. So if your community was a community that voted in favor and has retail locations, then you sort of automatically are a community where delivery is possible. So really the conversation that we're kind of focused on is creating zoning that would allow for businesses that want to have this type of operation to be located in the city. So it's a depending on how you want to look at it, it's an economic development kind of conversation related to the creation of local businesses here in Lowell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I will just note too that it's significant in that if we want to capture revenue and economic benefit from the industry, by allowing operators to locate here is really the only way for that to happen. Again, delivery is going to happen. The only way really to capture the economic benefits of the industry is to allow the operations to locate. I am going to open up, there are members of the public here, and I will open it up for any who wish to speak. But first, I believe, Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. So just for clarity, this conversation around the zoning component is taking existing locations in our city that's pretty much exclusive to cultivation, not so much retail, and just saying yay or nay whether or not we're going to allow these type of businesses to open up as well. I think in a community where we've already opened the door and accepted this industry, it's just another wing or another branch of the industry. I think the state has finally come around and done some things correctly by vetting the first 36 months, I think it is, or 3 years, social equity and economic empowerment applicants, which gives a lot of the smaller people and especially, members of the community that might have been disproportionately impacted as a result of the illegalization of cannabis, opportunity to get their foot in the door with a industry that's, blooming. So I think on a local level, it's definitely something we need to really wrap our head around, understand it, and see what can we do to kind of not just allow it, but make sure we protect our own interests as well. So I think first I'd like to thank, both zoning and DPD for coming up with this and spearheading this and bringing it to our attention. And again, as you mentioned earlier, we are behind the 8 ball on this compared to some other local communities. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Ms. Baez-Rose?
Yeah, just one thing that I think is important for us to also note is that during this window of economic empowerment applicants. The state, and there's been a lot of conversation about the barriers for entry into this industry and, the expense required, the access to capital, which has, disproportionately made it so that people that don't have access to those kinds of funds are unable to participate in this sort of emerging economic market. And so there has been a lot of conversation at the state level that a courier and delivery business has a significantly lower barrier threshold for entry. And so it is an opportunity for people at the local level who don't have access to that kind of capital to be able to start these kinds of businesses and engage in this emerging market. So, from our perspective, it's an opportunity for different Lowell residents who maybe didn't have the capital and weren't able to access a host community agreement for retail might still be able to participate in this market.
Thank you. That's a great point. I'm glad you raised that. At this point, I do want to open it up for. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Leahy. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Sorry, sorry I couldn't be there. But I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions at this time, but good presentation, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor. And I see, I'm going to open it up to members of the public who wish to speak. I see we have one who wants to speak. Could you just please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, Chair and councilors alike, and also to the zoning board team. My name is Nairobi Sanchez, and I am a resident here in Lowell, newly minted. I just moved not long ago as a result of a fire that I had in Haverhill. But I'm no stranger to Lowell. I'm a graduate of UMass Lowell. I used to work in government and politics and did a lot of work in this community as well. I'm happy to be returning here, and specifically in this capacity as a social equity applicant for a delivery courier license. So I'm specifically seeking a marijuana courier license. I'm not looking to necessarily operate or have a retail store or even, have a different kind of business, because there could be product manufacturing and things of that sort. The cannabis industry is large. And what I mean by that is that there is opportunity to grow. There's a lot of opportunity for folks like Black and brown entrepreneurs to really find spaces where they can excel in. And so as I'm before you this evening, I want you all to know that this right here is one of those spaces. While we are deliberating zoning laws, there are other communities that are even ahead of the game, even those communities that are local to us, such as Methuen, that said no to having cannabis, but they already have, or at least are looking to take active measures on delivery for operators and couriers alike. So what I wanted to say was that the zoning, I really love the presentation. I thought it was great. And specifically, Councilor Shittier, sorry. I really appreciated the comments and the questions, because I think that a lot of folks, as they hear about what the cannabis industry could do, and there's still a lot of stigma around cannabis, I want you all to look at a face like mine, someone who is familiar to this community, a neighborhood resident, and someone who's looking to establish their community here as an entrepreneur. I'm 29 years old, and I've got dreams to remember, as Otis Redding once said, okay? And not to make you all laugh, but this is serious business. I'm looking to see what we can do. And one of the concerns that I guess I want for everyone to understand is that there's very little opportunity in terms of funding a business like this. More especially is that true for retail marijuana businesses. So in a situation where we have a special zoning period or a special period for social equity and economic empowerment applicants, that basically means that we're getting the leg up, right? We're trying to level the playing field here to make it so that there is access and opportunity and the ability to raise funds, the ability to have community conversations. And the conversation that I anticipate to have with my community is not whether or not we like cannabis, not whether or not I'm going to deliver cannabis directly to your doorstep, but whether or not we're willing to expand opportunities to folks like me who are young, hungry, and are willing to do this the right way. So just the last bit of comment that I wanted to say In terms of the city getting fees, benefits from these type of licenses, the host community agreements have historically been a little bit, I would say, troubling in other communities where I don't think this is the case necessarily with Lowell, but I can't speak until I get there. Host community agreements can be charged up to 3% of an annual revenue for a business, right? You can make a different sort of agreement with an entrepreneur, but what that means is that you are getting these funds from these cannabis businesses. So from the very beginning, especially even while zoning, we would love to, just have an established relationship with our city officials, more importantly, those who are making these suggestions, like the zoning team, and also those in our community who probably want access to this as well. So delivery will still happen. It can happen from a business owner that's in another community, but more importantly, what will the city here do to empower its local entrepreneurs that are of this particular stature? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez, and I'm sorry to hear that it was the misfortune of a fire that brought you to Lowell. Glad to have you here, and really happy that you're interested in becoming an entrepreneur, or that you are an entrepreneur and looking to contribute here to the community. So thank you for that. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Yep. Please come on up. Just identify yourself for the record, please.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Joseph Shelsey. I'm here with my wife Julianne, and we have a business here in town that we've been operating for the last few years. It's called Wellman Farm. We're a manufacturer and a grower of cannabis. We cultivate cannabis at our facility, and my brother is a social equity member. He was an applicant until his application was accepted, and he's now a member, and applicants are not going to be able to get licenses for delivery. They need to be members, and their application needs to have been accepted. So just a distinction in terms of the way we're speaking about it. Wanted to clarify that. So we are members, and will be able to have our application considered by the Cannabis Control Commission. And one of the things that the counselor here asked about earlier was what is the consideration that the city will get. And the 3% is always mentioned, and it's something that is tied to economic impact to the city. And so it's not a guaranteed 3%, although it's been talked about that way, and it's been negotiated with people here in the cannabis industry. It has to be tied to impact that the city or municipality has encountered. And the reason I bring that up is that these licenses come with a guaranteed 3%, which is different than the other 3% that we were talking about earlier. And so I wanted to mention that it's guaranteed because of the issues that were brought up here earlier. The economic empowerment people have had difficulty getting host community agreements from the municipalities in Massachusetts, and so the state has decided that it makes sense to offer the municipalities that will give these host communities to industry people an extra 3% to encourage that. And so that's another pool of revenue that the city can look forward to. We're a small business, we're minority owned, and we're interested in getting an operator license. And we spoke or heard earlier about what that entails, and so that's the license that we're interested in, and I wanted to encourage the city to move forward with this because of some of the things, you mentioned, Councilor Drinkwater. You're going to have, you have people delivering now. They've been delivering for the last 40 years to Lowell, and they're going to continue to. And once these other facilities or companies are licensed by other communities, they're going to be not considered legacy delivery companies, which is what they're considered now. They're no longer illegal delivery, they're legacy. And so these new companies that will be licensed in other communities around will be legal, and they can legally deliver to Lowell. And so that's a good point, and the only way you're going to share in that revenue is to license people or give them host community agreements here in Lowell. And so I'd encourage it. I think it's going to be a good move, and the businesses that have been licensed in Lowell, there haven't been any of the problems that people were concerned about originally. None of those things have come to pass, and they're just like any other business that the city is licensing. And, you know, it was supposed to be more considered, the cannabis businesses were likened to liquor stores in the liquor business, and that was the way that it was hoped that people would deal with them. But it seems like, especially in the beginning over at Stedman Street, there were some misperceptions about reality. And now that we've seen over the last 3 years or so, 4 years, the reality is quite different than the people who were predicting that the sky was going to fall. It hasn't. It's not going to. It's a medicine that helps people, and it's not something that we need to be afraid of. It's something that we can regulate, and we're showing that we can do it, and we're doing it successfully. So I would encourage that we continue along that path, and applaud all of you for taking this up and considering it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your hearing me out.
Thank you very much. And I think it's great that we had a couple of potential applicants here tonight, and we're able to hear from you. So I appreciate you being here, and thank you for coming. I mean, at this time, I know we've heard a lot of discussion, and this, again, this is a continuation of a discussion that actually started in August. So at this point in the presentation, the chair would entertain a motion to bring this recommendation to the full city council with the support of the joint subcommittees.
I would make that motion.
Motion made by Councilor Robinson. Is there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Councilor Yem. Any further discussion?
No.
Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
4 yeas.
All right. Motion passes, so this will be brought to the full city council for discussion and vote at a future meeting. So once again, thank you very much for the presentation. Before we adjourn this meeting, just want to see if there was any other further discussion on the topic. Yes, Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to comment, I myself have toured a couple facilities in the city, and I have to say, first of all, from the outside, very inconspicuous. Cultivation facilities. You wouldn't even know what's in there. Inside, it's probably one of the cleanest places I've seen, period, in the city. I mean, everything was sterile and very well done. I mean, one of the things I can say is we're lucky. As a community, a lot of the business owners we have that are currently operating, they dot their I's and cross their T's, and they go above and beyond with security and the whole nine. I mean, everything from top to bottom is done, probably superseding the minimum requirements. So I'd like to say thank you to the community members that are actually operating and doing everything they can. One thing that surfaced a lot during our conversation is HCA's. I'd like to make a motion to a future subcommittee meeting specifically tailored around discussions with HCA's and what do we have to do to start carving this out and maybe work with zoning and DPD and legal and the council and carve out a template that we're all on board with the public and try to get this process somewhat streamlined because again, we are behind the 8 ball, so my motion would be try to set a subsequent subcommittee meeting primarily around HCA's and potential cannabis consumption lounge pilot program.
Thank you, Counselor. I think that's a great motion and a discussion I would welcome at a future meeting of the subcommittee. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by
Second.
Counselor Yem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So we will get a meeting of this subcommittee scheduled for that discussion. Counselor Getchia.
I just want to echo what Councilor Robinson said. I toured the facilities with him, and clean is an understatement on what they do, and security is second to none. When you look, I think it's over-regulation, in my opinion, on what they had to go through to even get started, and I think it's over-taxation by the way they tax them based off of what the perception is of it. I think they should be taxed like everybody else, and it should be a fair tax across the board. And if you look at a liquor store versus what they're doing, two totally different places. Even when you tour the Budweiser plant, it's nowhere near as clean as what we saw. And I would applaud them for the regulations that they follow. My concern is just the discussion and making sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed as we get into this venture and go forward. And that's really what I was bringing up on the Stedman Street thing. I thought we rushed to it as the speaker spoke to. But as we move forward, you look at these places, they're immaculate. So I would echo what Councilor Robinson said.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion before I will entertain a motion to adjourn? Counselor Yam?
If I could just thank the speakers who came out and express student support and what you do in the city, we appreciate, and we would like to support you and to grow your business here. So the same thing with Ms. Sanchez. We hope that will help you establish the delivery. So that would be a good thing, and to start a small business of your own. I appreciate the time you come out here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor, for those comments and sentiments that I certainly echo as well from the chair. So thank everyone for their participation tonight. With that, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.